On the low end, the cost for connecting an individual modem to a dial-up internet account is $25 to $50 a month in the United States. However, most LANs use a trunk line to connect to a carrier. Small business or departmental LAN connections run reasonably well on a 56 kilobit trunk, frame relay trunk that is. Frame relay is a protocol that optimizes bandwidth utilizing standard T-carrier architecture and is best used for interconnecting bursty LAN traffic, meaning that the traffic is not continuous. The price for a low-end 56 kilobit trunk is about $2,000, which includes a router and data services unit to install. Utilization averages around $500 a month, including local exchange carrier costs. The high-end T1, that's 1.544 million bits per second, frame relay circuit costs about $3,500 to install and somewhere around $1,000 to $2,000 per month, depending on distance to the internet provider. A central office switched alternative is the Integrated Services Digital Network, known as ISDN, which provides 128 kilobits multimedia connection on the same wire. The good news is that it's cheaper to install and use, but the bad news is that you only have the service when you make an ISDN call. Thus, it is not suitable for websites or high-usage LANs. The other piece of good news is that ISDN facilitates video teleconferencing. As one can see, depending on location, that there are several alternatives to consider. Selection of the optimum connection service is dependent on the application, desired level of service, and the availability of these various levels of service through local internet and local exchange carriers. At Santa Clarita, the plan called for a hybrid network. The internet access is to be provided over a T1 frame relay trunk via an internet gateway from the web server. ISDN backup is provided as a low-cost way to back up the network and provide for multimedia and video teleconferencing applications when the backup is not being used. As mentioned earlier, LAN-WAN integration requires security planning. Direct connection of a publicly used WAN, such as the Internet, to the LAN exposes the LAN to penetration by hackers and thieves. The most common way of providing secure interchange with a WAN such as the Internet is to install a firewall server that provides electronic access control. For smaller LANs, a PC-based server may be used and costs around $3,500. For larger LANs and systems that require audit trails and sophisticated routing and switching, a high-end Unix server in the range of $10,000 plus software licenses and fees is required. Integrated web servers that have all of the Internet software, including a server-based web browser like Netscape, run about $7,000 with software licenses. These servers are often used as websites and can be connected to a firewall for security. Note, the web server is on the public side of the firewall. In more sophisticated sites, source query language, SQL servers, are used to provide client-server access to mainframe data warehouses. Source query language is the standard for fast, user-friendly access to large, modern database systems that support SQL applications. The data is exported to and imported from the SQL server containing the latest database platforms like Oracle and Sybase. Use of these servers extends the life of the mainframe computers by offloading network transaction processing. The SQL server can also be connected to the public side of the firewall so that only valid data makes it into the database and hackers are kept out. These servers are usually more expensive due to the software license for the database. There is also some equipment that is often provided by the carrier. Price evaluation of carrier should factor whether the router and DSU are provided with the service. If not, the cost is around $2,000 for this equipment. At Santa Clarita, the design calls for the website to be placed on the public side of the firewall. Web access to the inter-domain networks will require proxy authorization from the system administrator. In the United States, there is great demand for information technology professionals and technicians. As a result, the salaries are up. They most likely are not as high outside of the United States. Thus, these salaries should be adjusted for each country. They are listed here to point out some of the required staff positions that need to be filled to sustain a successful IT program. The higher-end technical position is a network specialist to deal with all of the networking issues described herein. With the proliferation of office automation software, most large sites need an office automation specialist to install and troubleshoot common office problems. The greatly expanding Internet demand can often require dedicated Internet specialists focused on LAN-WAN integration, network security, robust information sources, and website development. For large sites, a learning center for technology staffed by one or more trainers is needed to continually educate staff and students on how to use the new technologies being implemented. Sometimes, when in-house staff does not have the time or expertise to work many of these implementation support issues, outside consultants can be used for technical support as well as for planning and design. As shown, the cost for this support can be high and is best used to augment or train staff. Long-term consulting relationships can be productive when planned carefully. There should be guidelines in the plan established by the Technology Committee to evaluate consultant performance. At Santa Clarita, the plan is to recruit the recommended staff, and in the meantime, they will continue to use consultants until the in-house staff is in place and a smooth transition is achieved. Most successful major systems have common denominators and major milestones that assure requirements traceability throughout the system life cycle. This life cycle defines each step of the implementation process and has been codified in the International Standards Organization's ISO 9000 System Development Standard. Each one of these steps, from requirements analysis through installation and training, is important for the successful implementation of any major system and helps prepare the user community for its deployment. Well, we have covered a lot of ground in the short time that I've had with you today. I think it's important to summarize a few key points to take with you. Plan a sound migration strategy that will minimize disruption to existing operation and maximizes the usage of the existing investment in IS technology. Plan for future growth. Usage of the campus network and the Internet will expand as more users come online and the demand for a broader range of services is realized. In addition, new technologies such as multimedia systems along with new applications such as online registration will add stress to your computing environment. Just remember that retrofitting is expensive. It is better to lay the foundation for expansion in the beginning, during the planning phase. Consider buying one level down from the top of the line desktop computers and state-of-the-art. One can achieve excellent price performance results with systems that are a few months old as long as one selects technology that can be upgraded. Be sure to implement a security strategy that protects your IS assets from hackers and viruses. That includes developing a disaster recovery plan that protects your critical IT assets in the event of a disaster. Consider rapid prototyping and phased implementation to reduce risk and provide for a smoother, friendlier transition to full Internet service usage. Rather than unleash a new system on an entire user community and spend lots of money up front, I recommend a phased approach. One can start by selecting an initial subset of services and software to be supported. This technique provides the opportunity to gain experience and expand capability as user expertise grows and requirements dictate. Implement the IT process and an IT strategy based on industry standards and proven commercially available products. And finally, be sure to give due consideration to staff development and technical support. Remember, it is very important to establish the overall vision for how information technology will take you into the information age that will virtually surround us in the 21st century. We have the opportunity now to prepare for this eventuality. The signs are all around us, as the pace of information technology development accelerates forward. Those of us who fail to plan for this technology now, as Santa Clarita has, will run the risk of being left behind by those who had the foresight to position themselves to take advantage of all of the benefits that this technology can offer. Let us use this technology in partnership to enrich our daily lives and empower those around us to join in our collaborative efforts to continue mankind's education. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Let us begin with the second question and answer session. We have a phone question live from Argentina, Instituto Novel in Rio Tercero. Welcome. Your question, please.
Yes. I'm calling from Rio Tercero, Córdoba, Argentina. I'd like to express how happy and proud we are able to form part of the network set up by San Diego State University and its International Training Center. My question is, Internet as a tool in the work environment, how can it most effectively link supply and demand, and if this type of connectivity or connection needs to be regulated in any way whatsoever?
Okay.
Well, I'm not for regulating it from a government perspective. I think one of the charms and productivity aspects of the Internet is it's inherently open for everyone to use. In terms of linking businesses, I believe the question relates to electronic data interchange, where companies doing business with each other can be linked together using the Internet so that you can do things like just-in-time demand inventories, that you can very quickly find out if your supplier has what you need in stock, that they can sort of look at what your databases have so that they can decide on how much inventory to carry in support of and anticipating what your needs will be. So we see this as a real productive use of the Internet, is to link organizations together for sharing information so that they work with each other much better and more productively.
One of the things we've found is that suppliers are putting up their parts lists on the Internet, and in fact one of the major electronic suppliers now has their parts up in a CAD or computer-aided design mode, which then designers can take that and bring that into their system and see if it will fit with the products they're trying to develop.
We have a call now from Universidad Autónoma de Aguascalientes. Welcome. Your question, please.
Good morning. We're calling from the Universidad Autónoma de Aguascalientes from Mexico. My question is, how much does information technology help us in our company's competitive strategies?
The competitive edge.
I think if the information technology helps you by providing information to your customers quickly, and particularly those customers that are working in high-tech, they can then see what is available, they can see new upgrades, and it's just a much faster means of communication both with your customers and with your external sales force.
Yes, let me even get to a more fundamental issue, that for doing business in the 21st century, it will be critical to your survival. If you can't compete with your competitors who have this technology, you will be out of business. It's extremely important. Now, this can be, if you look at American Airlines is a perfect example where they use information technology strategically to leverage their services. They don't make money on airplane flights. They make money on the information technology that supports them. It's a little-known fact. So I think that if you look at this from the perspective of your long-term survival, it's not just to do it more productively and better, it's to stay in business.
We have a question from Peru, from the Universidad Nacional de Ingeniería in Lima. Welcome. Your question, please.
Perú. Que levanten el fondo ya. ¿Acá nomás?
Puede, si esta
Gracias.
We would like to have more in-depth information insofar as multimedia programs and long-distance collaborative educational types of programs. Thank you.
Okay, multimedia, long distance.
Well, I think that there's a number of, I don't know if you've heard of EDUCOM or the University of the World or any of these university type collaborative setups. I think you're starting to find more and more of these programs being developed to interconnect universities and community colleges and colleges with local school systems. I think you'll see multimedia enter the program the standpoint as the bandwidth becomes available in the networks to support these types of communications, then you'll have that opportunity.
We have a call from the Instituto Tecnológico de Celaya in Guanajuato. Welcome. Your question, please.
Adelante. This is Héctor Aguilar. My question is the following. What is needed to attain this type of organizational culture?
This is primarily, I think, attaining the organizational culture is the role of senior management, and they have to set the role model, that they're willing to accept change, they're willing to learn, they're willing to expose themselves to uncertainty. This is very difficult.
Okay. That was from Celaya, and we are going now to the next caller from Servicio Nacional in Rio de Janeiro. Welcome. Your question from Brazil. Your question, please.
Both speakers have dealt with how to introduce information technology in the firm environment. However, in other parts of the world, entrepreneurs, especially the small and medium entrepreneurs, may not be so convinced that this is a very useful thing. Can you say a few words stressing why they should get into the information technology business?
One of the main things I think for the small and medium-sized firm and the entrepreneurs is this is a way to get your product out to potential customers. When they do scans looking for your product and where it's available, you're there just with the IBMs and the digitals. And if you have a particularly good product, people can find out about you.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think also that you want to look at it from the perspective that in some of the other countries that you may have mentioned that they may be a little bit behind in some of these developments based on their nation's infrastructure and communications. And I think that it probably will follow a similar curve, although maybe just a little bit slower than it has in the United States. But I think eventually that it's sort of a gradual acceptance. I don't think you can flip a light switch and have the middle-range entrepreneurial executive embrace this technology. I think it's something that they'll have to see sort of gradually over time. But I think it will become increasingly important and probably will accelerate in these countries as it has in the United States. But that may happen in the next century.
We have a call from Huamuchil, the Colegio de Bachilleros, Estado de Sinaloa. Welcome. Your question, please.
Good morning. We're calling you from the Centro de Desarrollo Educativo from Sinaloa, Mexico. My question is, what has San Diego State University's experience been with its teachers and its students, and how do you recommend our institution incorporate this new strategy? Thank you.
Well, one of the things, senior leadership here has made a commitment to provide a workstation on every professor's desk, which can access the email. This has greatly facilitated our communications, both with students and with colleagues in other parts of the world. Students can leave messages for me. I answer them when I come in, which is in various times, and students says they will are home at various times, and they will do their checking. But within a day, we can have a two-way communication, and I think it's greatly improved our effectiveness.
And we face all of the problems that everyone else faces, with the system getting overloaded, with complications of hardware or software. No one is at some ultimate omega point. We are all in process. We have a question from SECAP in Mexico, Comisión Federal de Electricidad. Welcome. Your question, please.
Thank you. Considering the fact that technical problems have solutions and human problems may be overcome but not resolved, do you believe that Internet technology is serving the human race, or do you believe that the human race is at the service of this type of technology?
Well, sometimes it might feel like the latter, but the purpose, hopefully, is for the Internet to be a tool for human development. We like to think of the computers and the communications as the ability to empower us to be able to be more productive or communicate with more people in remote locations and operate in a more collaborative sense. Hopefully, that the Internet will be perceived in your operation as a productive tool to enhance your productivity. At times, though, when it first goes in and you're going through the learning curve of how to use the network and find things on the network, because it is so immense, that to make this happen comfortably and effectively does require some training. So that will partially depend on the orientation and effectiveness of the training program at your location. So with that training in place, it should become, we'll still remain the masters of it, but I think that's a very, very good point. That humans remain ultimately in the control of these machines.
We have a call from the Instituto Tecnológico de Tlalnepantla. Welcome. Your question, please.
Good morning. This is Rogelio Salazar from the Instituto Tecnológico Tlalnepantla. My question is, how should the decision-making process be made, and how should it incorporate the technological strategies that should be implemented in small and mid-sized companies? Thank you.
Another question of scale.
Well, I think one of the things you want to do here is decide what your overall organizational strategy is going to be, how you want to relate to the marketplace and your customers, and then decide on a technology strategy to support that. Now, as the technology becomes, new capabilities in technology may then lead to changes in the overall organizational strategy, but that's an iterative process. But first, how you relate to the marketplace.
A question from the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de Mexico in Cuautitlán. Welcome. Your question, please.
Gracias.
Thank you. Internet service use has seen increased efficiency in import-export transactions. Will this result in an increased, more efficient type of import-export transaction and trade in general?
Yes, overwhelmingly. It greatly facilitates international trade and communication and makes global organizations possible, our global strategies possible.
Yes, I think, for example, let's say that you were in the software business, that you can use the Internet to distribute your software to anyone who wants to buy it anywhere in the world. And instead of waiting to have it shipped or packaged and so on, that you can actually take a test drive on the network, see if you like the product, and then if you want to buy it, you download it to your system and so on. So there's some real opportunities here, especially if you happen to be in a high-tech business, to really expand rapidly in international trade.
Our final question is from Panama, the Universidad Tecnológica de Panama.
Yes, good morning. What is the basic element for this type of technology to be successful if it's said that financial, human, physical, and organizational resources may not be at their optimum level?
In a word.
Use the last generation.
Okay.
I think it would be organizational commitment to scale that to your enterprise.
Thank you. And thank you for your many excellent questions. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. We must now bring to a close this video conference. Thank you very much, Dr. Rhyne, Mr. Smith. We hope you have enjoyed this teleconference and have gained from it. We will continue transmitting programs on the latest in management techniques and systems and global competitiveness. We invite you to participate on September 19th in the next program of our Strategies for Global Competitiveness series, entitled Quality Standards for Global Competitiveness, What Executives Should Know. We also hope you will join us on September 26th for the third and final program in our International Conflict Management series entitled Effective Management of International Conflict, The Strength of Diversity. For additional information on the International Training Center's programs, please consult your participant manuals, where you will find the dates and topics of programs we will offer throughout this year. The International Training Center is dedicated to creating the next generation of effective decision-making managers and to bringing out the best in today's workforce. On behalf of all of us here at the International Training Center at San Diego State University and KPBS TV, we are grateful for your participation and interest. May it lead to great success. I'm Dr. Michael Reel. Thank you.